What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston, live from my house. Came back from TD Garden just now from the Celtics 123-103 win over the flailing Phoenix Suns, which I remain really just disappointed by their season. And they're such a tough watch. I've now watched them in person twice in about a 10-day span, and I'm glad that that's not the team I covered because there's a lot of joyless basketball going on that side. But not our problem. Celtics break their one-game losing streak, not much of a streak, but get back in the win column. They've now won 10 of their last 11 games. They're 57-20 on the season. Again, they could win the next 5 games. They'd finish with 62 wins. They're probably going to hit 60 wins. I don't see them losing the majority of their remaining games here. So another presumed 60-win season for Boston. And the story from this one, in my eyes, is Jaylen Brown, who everybody knows. If you're watching this podcast, I'm sure you're plugged in enough to know that Jaylen Brown has been dealing with this undisclosed knee injury, bone bruise, knee impingement. Nobody really knows exactly what the situation is and exactly what the outlook is. But he basically has been playing through it for the most part. He's had some rest days, but for the most part, it's just something that he's kind of plowing through. And this was his best game in about a month, I would say. He finished with 30, let me make sure it's right. 31 points, 10 of 16 shooting, 8 of 9 from the free throw line, 3 of 4 from 3, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, only one turnover. He was a plus 21 on the night. Really strong performance from him. All of this, again, is in 28 minutes because he's still on that minutes restriction. And he talked really openly after the game about just why he's playing through this, kind of the mental aspect, the fact that rest doesn't necessarily mean that this will get better. So that's part of why he's not resting. I encourage you to check out that press conference in full on CLNS Media. You can watch that. But still, please watch this episode first, and then you can go catch his full presser, which was about 11 minutes long, which is unusual for any of the post-game pressers. Usually they're about 5 to 6 minutes. So he went long, he went in depth, he was reflective, and I think he answered pretty much any question you might have about the knee situation that he's able to share. And he said he's not going to be able to share specifics. Sounds like there's a treatment plan that they're lining up for closer to the playoffs, that they have some hope will make him feel better. But for the most part, he reflected about just what this process looked like. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. But just big picture, everybody was available for this game. This is the first game in a couple weeks where the whole lineup was available. You had the preferred starting five, is what I call them. So Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis. And not everybody played a ton. Kristaps Porzingis, only 23 minutes. He left the game with stitches on his face. He had this like super hyped up exit where he was hyping up the crowd, blood gushing down his face. Gets stitches, doesn't return. He comes back. He was in a good mood in the locker room, but that was the case for him. And then Jason Tatum, good game for him, 23 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds. It feels like he's just constantly flirting with a triple-double now. And he's really close to being a guy who I think is going to start racking up triple-doubles regularly. He's right there. So good game for him. He's still struggling with a shot. He's one of 8 from 3 in this one. So really good inside the arc. And he's down to like 30% shooting since the All-Star break. So definitely something to watch from 3. Definitely something to watch kind of how he's doing there, and if that's something that teams are going to adjust how they guard him. I think if they don't, the percentages don't matter as much. Obviously, you want to hit your shots, but if teams start guarding him really differently, like that would be a cause for concern. So in any case, Tatum flirts with a triple-double. Derek White also flirting with a triple-double in this one, 12 assists, 12 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Porzingis adds 15. Peyton Pritchard off the bench, super effective. 6-man campaign is ramping up. The Celtics played like a 6-man of the year campaign commercial for him today in between the first and second quarters. And you can kind of see that I think he's kind of a shoo-in at this point, but 10 points, 4 or 5 from the field, hits 2 of 3 threes, 3 assists for him. Again, only in 22 minutes because they played kind of like a real minutes rotation and still more consolidated. Like Drew only played 28 minutes. Jaylen only played 20 minutes. I don't think that those guys are going to play 28 minutes in the postseason, but you could see that they had their 5 and then they had their 4 guys off the bench that might actually play in the playoffs. I expect Peyton Pritchard, Luke Cornett, Al Horford, and Sam Hauser to all get minutes in the postseason rotation, and the distribution will probably depend on matchups and things like that. But that was kind of the lineup that they had there. So 9 guys are potentially in this playoff rotation. Honestly, pretty deep team when you think about it. That doesn't include guys like Torrey Craig, who I think, is still a veteran guy who's played in 75 playoff games, even though we haven't seen a whole lot from him in Boston. Baylor Shireman, who showed some really good flashes over these past few weeks. Wasn't in the rotation today. I don't anticipate that he will be in the postseason. And then there's guys that just are not going to play: Drew Peterson, Jordan Walsh, Xavier Tillman, Namir Takeda. I don't think is going to get much run. But again, it's a long playoffs, hopefully, right? So you never know what kind of matchup's going to bring out different reasons for people to kind of leverage different combinations, whether it's, Xavier Tillman in the finals last year or Shea Brissett in the conference finals. You just never know, right? So in any case, a good win over a not a great team, but well-distributed effort. You had 6 players in double digits. And really the most important one is the fact that Jaylen Brown found a way to be effective through what is a very visible pain. I think it's pretty obvious to people that he's in pain. You can't really be denied. It's not something that we're used to seeing. And he's doing it. He's playing through it, and we can debate all day about whether he should or he shouldn't, but the reality is that he is. And the reality also appears to be that it probably wouldn't matter too much whether or not he was playing through it, because it doesn't seem like it's something that he has been told is going to get better with rest, or else he probably would have just rested. That's what he communicated to us post game, and you can watch his full presser. So I'll just say, I think in general, the starting 5 unit, like the Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, White, Holiday unit, they're like a -2 on the season as far as net ratings goes. And if you sub in Al Horford for Porzingis, they're like a +17. So I think there's some shot variation stuff there. I think there's some stuff around how early in the season with Porzingis, they were playing really well, and then they went through a slump. So some of it's just not really necessarily his fault. Again, none of it's his fault, but trying to figure out like why those numbers are the way they are and why it seems like the starting 5 with Al does so much better. I do think there's some explanation behind it, as far as like Al is a connector on offense. He's not somebody that demands the ball because they're not going to run plays for him, whereas they're going to run stuff for Porzingis to get an advantage. Defensively, they do different things with Al and KP. So it's just something to be mindful of. I don't think that KP needs to move to the bench. I don't think that it's like, oh my gosh, this lineup is terrible, like they're going to be screwed. But they have a lot of different lineups that work. And NBA University shared out like the top 6 most commonly used lineups, and how they do. And I think the best lineup actually was a funny one. It was Jason Tatum, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Luke Cornett. So it's Derek, Jason, and the bench effectively, and that's their best lineup. They're like a +27 in their minutes. So I say all that to say is that I think that this period of time right now, where they're fully healthy, or at least they're fully available, because obviously everybody's dealing with things, is a period of time where you can give that starting 5 more opportunities together. Go let them mesh a little bit, let them get some rhythm, chemistry, figure out touches, figure out distribution. Drew Holiday only took 3 shots tonight. Peyton Pritchard took 5. And it's hard because I'm looking on the line and I'm like, oh, well, Drew should take more than 3 shots. But it's like, where do you take those shots away from? Tatum took 18. He was 9 of 18. Probably you could take away a few of his threes because he was not super efficient from downtown. But it's like, yeah, it's not like anybody took 30 shots in this game. You look on the other side, Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker was 15 of 29. He had 37 points. So that's kind of the thing with the conundrum with the Celtics, is when they're fully healthy, you don't necessarily have like a very obvious solution of like, how do you distribute all these shots, because you just have so much talent on this roster. So different nights, it's going to be different guys. And because you're using all these guys, like all of a sudden Sam Hauser might come in and literally take 3 shots, right? So it's not a problem necessarily, but it's something to think about when I think about the starting 5, that it seems like KP and all those guys, like they all usually have an advantage on offense. That's kind of what it is. And so how do you kind of navigate through that? We'll see. They have a couple more games where they're going to probably play together, and we're going to see in the playoffs. They take away the easiest things. There's usually less mismatches because you're playing better teams too. So I'm sure they're going to be happy to have their plethora of talent in the postseason. But in any case, before I get into Jaylen, because that's going to be kind of the main discussion today, something that I wanted to talk about is just the sights and sounds from on the ground, because ultimately I'm at these games and I didn't have to travel for this one. Usually when I travel, I'm like extra focused on like sharing the sights and sounds, because there's not a lot of reporters there, and because there's resources and money spent for me to be at these games. So I always go kind of the extra mile where I'm home. Sometimes I forget that like it's still worth explaining and sharing. So I'll just say, Bill Chisholm, the new Celtics owner, his wife, kids, everybody was there at the game. Pre-game, he's here for the 3-game homestand. So I hadn't met him until today. And then he was there. Brad Stevens was there. Wick there as well. Paul Pierce and his daughter, 17th birthday for his daughter, in the house. So before the game, it was like a party on the parquet. And I have court access. Like, I'm allowed to go on the court. I usually do on the road because there aren't a lot of reporters. But then at home, it's like, I just feel like it's a little bit much to be walking around the courts, or at least I feel that way. Like, I'm sure it's fine if I do because I have access, but I was kind of just hovering behind TD Garden and like behind the court itself. And Bill came up to me and was like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan." And I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe the new Celtics owner tunes in to CLNS things and he watches the Garden Report and he's been plugged in and all that." So it's been funny. It was funny to meet him. It was a cool moment because I knew I should have approached him. Like my plan was like I was gonna go up to him at some point and just introduce myself as a reporter that covers the Celtics. But I was like, okay, I'll find the right moment. I'll find the right moment. And then he just came up to me, so that made it easier. But just I'm sharing that not to be like, oh, Bill knows who I am, although it was kind of a cool moment, but mostly just to kind of lay the groundwork of how this night kind of unfolded. He introduced himself to Al Horford. He introduced himself to Sam Hauser. I watched him, talk to Eddie Palladino, the in arena announcer. Like he was doing the whole tour, meeting everybody that's involved in and with the organization. And he lives in California still, but part of what his family's doing is they're house hunting, and they're gonna buy a house probably close to the Garden as well. So he was a nice guy. I honestly I kind of bought the fan thing beforehand, but he really comes off like a fan. Like I the way he talks, the way he carries himself, it totally does feel that way. So again, we'll see how things go. We'll see. I know the ownership thing is not a fully done deal. There's still hoops and hurdles, and the NBA needs to prove it and everything. But met him today. Seems like a nice guy. Talked to him for quite a while actually. So got some interesting. Just he was so excited to meet Joe. He said Joe was really warm to him and all of that. So yeah, it was fun to do that and just very hectic day. Like it almost felt like a playoff game with just how much action there was on the court. Normally, there's not that much going on, especially on like a game like this where none of these games really matter. It's not like it's not the game you'd expect there to be all this commotion. But Bill's in town just for one more game. He'll be leaving after Sunday, so he was here for the 3 games, and we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if he was back in the playoffs, especially if things proceed here. But that's the current reality for kind of what's everything's going on here. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at the basketball board and I'm selecting Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Edwards for more than 25 points. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So I wanted to talk about Jaylen and just kind of the situation with him. And obviously everybody knows that he's playing through injury. There's been a lot of discourse around why he's playing through it and whether he should be playing through it and all that. So I asked him specifically about the fact that he's playing through pain, the fact that it's uncomfortable, it's uncommon to watch NBA athletes play through visible pain, and also if there's like a certain pride about the fact that he's been able to do so effectively to still put up like efficient numbers. He's shooting 57% since he came back on that Western Conference road trip. So they haven't always been the most dominant performances. This is his first time eclipsing 30 points in like almost a month, but still like he's shooting a high percentage, right? So this is what I'm going to read the full answer because I think this is kind of, it was, he said a lot of it. It wasn't just my question that he answered well, but I'm just going to read this one because I think it captures a lot of what he said. He said, 2 parts, great question. One, you normally see people go complain about when people are choosing not to play. I've never experienced it the other way around where I'm playing and people are encouraging me not to. Pain is definitely a physical thing, but it also is a mental thing. So Joe has allowed me, even though like my team can visibly see that maybe I'm in a little bit of pain, they trust me to go out there and I can control my body and still be able to make plays and mentally be able to kind of push through it. I think that's going to be something I'm going to have in my back pocket. So I've just been utilizing these games in order to feel things out. Things will get better, I'm sure. But if they don't, then I still have a good feel of where my baseline is at and stuff like that. Because there's no guarantee, honestly, that rest is going to make anything better. I wish it would, but it's kind of the cards that are laid out. So I thought there was a lot of good stuff there. First of all, I think there is a reality where like we're all like, why is he playing? Why is he playing? And it's like it's kind of ironic because of the fact that we're always, we as in like the broader basketball community, everybody always wants players to play through things, and he clearly wants to as well. And in this case, it's like everybody wants him to sit because of the playoffs, which I totally get why, and I've had those thoughts as well. But I think he definitely is kind of like he realizes it's almost like backlash to the fact that he's having to play through this injury. The mental thing I think is really real, and honestly, I asked him about it in was it Phoenix? Yes, it was in Phoenix. So that was the first game I won on the road trip. So I asked him about it in Phoenix, and he said that at the time he kind of talked about the mental and the confidence and the alignment and how everything needed to align for him, and he was feeling kind of like that was the hard part. He had missed a few games. He hadn't played in a couple weeks, and the knee pain was real. But I think the mental part is what he was figuring out. That was a week and a half ago, right? That was the last time they played Phoenix, and since then, I feel like you can tell that his confidence and his mental is coming around. So that line about like pain is physical, but it's also a mental thing. Like I think that is something that is really underrated and a big part of why he's playing through this injury, because he recognizes the fact that he is going to have to play in the playoffs. He wants to be available, but he's going to have to figure out a way to be effective. He said today, John Corrales asked him this question. He asked him about if he's been studying anybody's game. And he said Paul Pierce, actually, he was watching some highlights earlier today as far as figuring out how to get to his spot without that burst. He doesn't have that burst right now. He doesn't have that explosiveness. Bennett plays that normally he would, shoot layups, dunk. He's kind of finishing more softly around the rim. But that version of him is not necessarily like a bad basketball player. I mean, it's definitely not a bad basketball player, but it's not necessarily even a worse basketball player than the one we saw earlier in the season because he's just moving different. And he's relying on his skill more than his athleticism. And I think he talked a little bit today about how that's actually been kind of an encouraging thing for him. The reality that he actually is a skilled player and he can kind of leverage that aspect of things as well. So I thought his spirits were pretty high in this game. Yeah, and then post game as well. Like obviously, I'm sure it feels good to score 30 on the bad knee. I'm sure it feels good just in general to find your rhythm and hit your shots and everything. And you could tell like he talked post game after the loss to Miami on Wednesday. And yeah, that was a loss. He didn't play as well as he played in this game, but I think you could just tell that he wasn't as much in the mindset to answer those questions. Whereas today he really was, and he was willing to be reflective and I thought the Paul Pierce thing was an interesting tidbit. I thought the fact that he is really kind of thinking through the mental aspect of this. He credited Joe a number of times for kind of allowing him to play through this, allowing him to kind of make mistakes and do things that maybe he wouldn't normally do, just because he trusts him. He trusts that he's going to figure things out. So I'm not going to say Jaylen's knee is not a concern. It's a concern when one of your star players is dealing with something serious, especially a knee, because it's so it's so connected to the rest of your body and everybody knows knee problems. Like, again, we don't know what kind of knee issue this is, but I'm not surprised. I'm not going to diminish the potential significance of something like this. But at the same time, I'm encouraged by the fact that he was able to play at a high level, compete, be effective and efficient. And he's been efficient and effective since he came back in that Sacramento game. Like, some of these performances have been more quiet. There have been games where he's gone 5 of 9 from the field or whatever, but he's not forcing the issue for the most part. And he said in Miami, he did a little bit, he took some ill-advised shots, but he's just kind of figuring things out. And I thought that this has been a pretty encouraging stretch here for him to see him play through the pain, play through the injury, and it might come up in the playoffs as a major issue, especially defensively. I don't know what that's going to look like because obviously he's a guy that typically guards opposing teams' best players, and I don't know if they're going to want him to do that. I don't know if he's going to be able to. I'm not sure as far as his burst goes, if that's going to impact defense or not. I would imagine that it would, but we haven't really seen that play out as much because he hasn't had like a full-blown defensive effort in any of these games yet, which maybe is because he's not capable. I don't know. So we'll see. Something to keep our eye on. But generally speaking, there's so much talent on this team on both ends that even if Jaylen is a less athletic version of himself, like this is actually not necessarily the end of the world for this team. Everything else has to be good. Like your margin of error is smaller. And now I want KP to be healthy. Whereas, I mean, obviously I wanted him always to be healthy, but it's more important now when one of your players is going to be compromised. Tatum, he's been struggling from 3. Like there's a little bit less of a margin of error there. Like he's probably going to need to shoot better. Pritchard has to have good games against good defenses. Like all these things that we're like, is this going to be a problem? Is this going to be a problem? Some of them will be, but it just can't be all of them. That's always in my mentality. That you can have a couple issues, you can have a couple things you can overcome, but if you have everything goes wrong, obviously you can't overcome that, right? So I think there's enough in this team they can have Jaylen be playing at 70%, especially if he's doing it intelligently and kind of thinking through how to do it. I think they can be completely fine. But again, it makes it so that the onus is a little bit heavier on everybody else. But really just nice to hear him be so reflective, I guess, in his comments. And something that I was thinking about is I've always thought about like how are these guys' games going to translate to when they're older? Like I think Jason Tatum's game, even though obviously he has his athleticism and all that, but the way his game is, like I really do think he's going to be really good when he's like 35. Like I think that he is going to translate well. And I've had this thought over the years of like, how is Jalen going to be when he's like 35 years old? Like because he relies so much more on his athleticism. And this stretch of time is I don't want to say it's like telling me he's going to be completely fine because obviously like this is a small sample and he hasn't played the best defenses and all that and he's on a knee injury, so it's not like he's just older, right? But it's showing you like what another aspect of his game can look like. Like he's improved so much as a playmaker. His court vision's improved a lot. He's he has, I think, a little bit more of a polished skill set. I mean, definitely more than a little bit of a polished skill set than earlier in his career. And this stretch is making me think, you know what, Jalen's game might age more gracefully than I had initially anticipated when I thought about how is he going to look when he's 35 in the NBA versus Al and and Jason, all these different guys. And a lot of it is speculative. Like we don't actually know how these games will translate and how bodies will hold up and recovery and all that. And so there's a lot of luck and there's a lot of factors that I can't foresee, but definitely over the last like today in particular in this game against Phoenix, I was like, Jalen actually like I can see like an old man game for him and like how that would look in a way that I couldn't see like a month ago. So just a random aside from watching him play during the stretch, certainly still something to keep our eye on. It's not like a solved thing at all. And he said post game like he's not sure the rest would even help, right? So all of it is just about trust. Joe trusts him. Joe's letting him play through it. He trusts the medical staff. The medical staff has some things lined up for him before the playoffs, which hopefully are going to help. I don't know what that means, if it's shots or cortisol. I don't know. Like I'm clearly not in the medical space, but he said there's going to be some treatments that he's going to undergo or some plan that they have to be exact. So we'll see. But in general, fun game at TD Garden, good Friday night crowd. Bill Chisholm in the house. Nice to meet the new Celtics owner or the projected owner if everything kind of goes according to plan. And just a nice all-around team effort that kind of gave us a glimpse of what things might look like in heading into the postseason, heading into a way, when you really kind of have to maximize your wins and everything. So I really think they might have a 9-man rotation because I just don't see a world right now where they don't turn to Luke at all. I don't see a world where they don't turn to Peyton or Sam or Al at all. So I think they're going to have a 9-man rotation. I think it's a good thing, especially if you have guys dealing with injuries. And especially considering the fact that it's the first round. And last year they had no series go beyond 5 games. And I really do think that this year they're probably going to. And so you want to be conservative, especially with Jalen and his knee, and Al's a year older and Drew's a year older. And, who knows what else is happening behind the scenes that we have no idea about. And yeah, so you have guys you can trust. And I don't know that you had as much trust in those 4 guys off the bench as last year as this year. I think Sam and Al you did, but Luke and Peyton definitely have made a jump this season. So with that, I'm going to wrap up here. You can check out our post-game coverage. I did a stand-up with Bobby Manning on Jaylen Brown and kind of his situation. Post-game show always on CLNS Media. You can find my writing on CelticsBlog.com. I'm going to be doing even more writing on Celtics Blog as part of my responsibilities with SB Nation. So you can read. I'm going to have stories after these games. Big Jaylen Brown story on this one coming out as well. So check all that out. But as always, thank you so much for watching/listening. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, my YouTube channel. You got Boston Podcast, and anywhere else you want to watch the show. Thanks so much.